So now let's create a routing table. Okay, 1 second, guys. Let's add all the names. Default security route table. Yeah, this was the default routing table for my security VPC, right? So if I will see that it is covering all, right? So I can use that, but let's suppose this is our first time, so we will create two separate routing table. This one I will create my public CURITY. Okay, so I am creating one security public routing table, and I am selecting this for security VPC. Right now, I am creating one more security private routing table, and okay. Guys, if here where I can draw that so that there is no confusion. 1 second. MS Paint. M.0.0.0/16. So if this is my VPC, right? So what I did, I created 3 availability zones. This one was my management, this one was my public, and this one was my private availability zone. So for my management one, I have given IP 0.0/24. For my public one, I have given 1.0/24. Similarly, for my private one, I have given 2.0/24, right? And after that, I created one IG internet gateway here, right? And now we know that, right? For public one, definitely I need route to the internet. But for management one, I also need a route to the internet gateway. So I will, for these two availability zones, I will send that traffic to that internet. You know that, right? You have a better understanding while configuring that firewalls. That management interface is used for all the patching of that devices, right? For upgrades. For that is the reason I am sending that management subnet traffic as well to that internet. And for that public one, for private one, I will not send that traffic to the internet, right? So now I have created two security routing tables. So let's go to that public routing table, right? In that public routing table, I go to that subnet associations, that which subnet should be covered in this routing table. So edit, I will use my public routing table for my public subnets and for my management subnets. And in the routing table, I will click on edit, right? So I will add route for internet. It should go to internet gateway, for which internet gateway should go through that security gateway, right? So now my public routing table will cover my these two subnets, my management subnet and my public subnet. They will able to send to the internet traffic through this IGW, right? But my private subnet will not able to send because private subnet is not part of my public routing table subnet association. So this is my private routing table, right? So in that private routing table, I will say is that, okay, so this routing table is for my private subnet, done. But I will not create any external routing table, right? Because I don't want that this subnet communicate to that internet through IGW, right? So we want that they send all the traffic to the Palo Alto, right? So this part is done. So another thing, generally when we deploy, right, in VPC, right, we have a two types of security. One is on, so whenever we deploy any VPC, right, there are two layers of security. One is on the VPC layer where we have a network ACLs, right? And then another one is on the instance level, right, where we will deploy that firewalls. Or so here we will use the security groups, right? So let's suppose here if I will deploy that firewall, so here we will deploy a security group. So I have to cross verify that, right? If I am allowing that communication over that internet through my firewall, so is there any roadblocker for that network ACLs? So if you are in your organization and if you are managing network ACL, so you have to make sure that you allow your Palo Alto IPs, right? Uh, or whatever the ports through which you want to allow, right? That should be allowed on that network ACLs. But by default, all the traffic on the VPC through that network ACL is allowed. So due to that, I do not need to worry about that, right? So these are my network ACLs. This is for my security VPC, and in this security VPC, I have a three subnets, right? And for that three subnets, all the inbound traffic and all the outbound traffic is allowed. Generally, when we deploy in our organizations, we enable the inbound traffic, and in that inbound traffic, we allow from our on-prem public IPs, right? That only for our on-prem, uh, through that our on-prem public IPs, our firewalls will be accessible because they are on the management interface with that public IP. They are accessible over that public IPs, right? So they will be only accessible through that my office public IPs, right? So you can use that network ACLs, right? Okay, so now my network part is done.